We're 1 week away from what you worked so hard for.
It's NAIA football with Dannelly and Donley.
And don't you let a moment go without thinking about what's there for you to reach out and grasp.
Live once again for NAIA football with Dannelly and Donley. I am the aforementioned Dannelly portion of that crew. Coming up on tonight's show, we might have a special guest coming in 30 minutes if it works out in their schedule. We also will break down all of this weekend's games, plus look forward, obviously, to round 2 of the NAIA Championship Series, the first weekend of our expanded playoffs. Our expanded postseason of 20 games is in the books. A couple games that we got to look at that raised an eyebrow for one reason or another. And to help me do that is the 2-time national championship winning coach, multiple coordinator of the year winner. He is a guy that I like to call the brains of the actual football operation for the NAIA football with Dannelly and Donley. He is Pat Donley. What's up, Pat?
What's up, buddy? You're too kind. You're just nuts. You're the AI guy. I'm just the guy that you invited on because I'm witty, I guess. I don't know.
Well, that and we could just get along and have a conversation.
Well, of course,
it sounds natural.
Playoff edition, man. This is awesome. Playoff edition. Here we are.
And actually, like having a little bit of time to think about what happened as opposed to last week on the show where it's like, by the way, here's the pairings. Figure it out.
Yeah. Who's home? Who's going where?
Let me get my phone. Let me do my mystery caller that anybody that knows me figured out who the mystery caller was within 8 seconds. But yeah, that's besides the point.
Be nameless.
Yes, exactly.
Remain nameless.
It still reminds me, and I can say it now, one of the all-time greatest ADs in the history of the NAIA was Bruce Parker at Carroll College. And every year I would always have the pairings before anybody else. And that was because Bruce Parker would literally get him be like, hey, Jason, here's who's playing who. Thanks, Bruce. I'll just put that up on the website 10 minutes early. And then create enemies at the national office. I wonder why. It's weird.
So you were the Peter King of the NAIA and also the Adam Schefter at the same time.
Just all of it. Yeah.
All of it rolled into one. Jason Dannelly, the one and the only.
With terrible takes. So we're going to take a shot and look at what happened this week in the world of NAIA football, kind of get through the results here for the last week. And, get the opportunity, obviously, to look forward at this week's games and a couple eyebrow raisers. First of all, let's go through who everybody's playing this next week. I think most people have seen this by now, but Northwestern's going to get Dort. Grandview's going to get Dickinson. The home team's in the first column, by the way, everybody. Home team in the first column. Kaiser's going to get that rematch with St. Thomas. Georgetown's going to take on Baker. Marion going to have a rematch with St. Xavier. And then we've got Indiana Wesleyan going up against Morningside and what I think will be a great second round contest, pardon me. And then Montana Western with the rematch against College of Idaho. So were any of these a surprise or a shock to you, Pat?
The pairings, no. I think, it's you still have that regional flair to it, obviously, in essentially round 2. I guess you can call this, I guess last week the play-in round or yesterday the play-in round? How are we categorizing that?
They're calling it the first round, but I feel like this is the first round because it's the field of 16, so it's almost like the play-in, but I don't know. But then it's like, did you make the playoffs? Well, yeah, you made the playoffs. We have to call it first round of the playoffs. Just weird if you've been around us for a while.
Yeah, I think they're the greatest matchups I've seen. If you consider this round 1 of the 16, there's some heavy hitters. You've got teams. Look at the records. You're seeing some top end teams, playing in this round. Playing against one another. Some traditional powers going head to head. Some teams that have won national championships and not too far in the past year that are traveling and creating huge matchups. Like the Indiana Wesleyan Morningside game just jumps out to me. That's going to be a cool one to see. There's a lot of great ones and with some rematches and that sort of thing too. So this is going to be an exciting round for sure.
The only one that surprised me a little bit, but I get it, because really this is the round of rematches. There is a lot of teams in the postseason that have played one another already. So you've got to take care of some of those rematches early on. Otherwise you get a conference championship rematch in the semifinals, and people don't like that. So a lot of rematches. The only one that I thought they may have switched around was sending Dickinson State to Northwestern and Dort to Grandview. But it's neither here nor there. I think it's a fine selection the way they did it. My mindset told me they're going to go the other way with that, but it makes sense that everything that could be a rematch in the NAIA Championship Series this round is a rematch, and then we see some teams going up against one another for the first time. So we'll break down all these games a little bit later on in the show. We might have a special guest join us to do one of those. It all just depends on when they get on. They might be joining us in about 25 minutes. I don't want to unveil it because I told him, so we've already eliminated all the females I would have brought on. But I told him, hey, man, if it works in your schedule and you can jump on for a quick 5-10 minute thing, that'd be awesome. So we're going to try to have a special guest in about 25 minutes. No hints, but you'll be pleasantly surprised, I think, Pat, when the guest comes on.
Awesome. I'm looking for, I don't know. It's a secret to me too. So
it is a secret
hopefully it happens.
Well, I don't want to disappoint. That's my thing. Right. My entire life has been, filling people. Try not to do it on this show for a couple minutes. Quarter there, and they had 2 field goals, and they really drove down deep, had the opportunity to score a touchdown if they maybe would have decided to be a little bit more risky, but instead kicked field goals. And then in the second quarter, it wasn't about field goals, it was scoring touchdowns. They opened things up. Statistically there, you see Rontavious Farmer, 35 carries, 191 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was a monster for St. Thomas yesterday. Reiner just couldn't get anything going offensively, Pat. They had a couple drives early on. They got to midfield, got past midfield, and just sputtered. They were able to get a score in the third quarter there, but when you watch this game and when I watched it live yesterday, St. Thomas just much better, I felt, in terms of what they had together for a game plan and their ability, I guess I should say, to execute that game plan. And it was run the football.
Yeah, that one just jumps out. You see that score, it's like, is that correct? I saw that last night. I go, really? Yeah, I mean, you talked about, Jason. I asked you the question, point blank to say, which of these teams in the play, we'll call it the play-in round, whatever you want to call it, who could make some noise? And you said the St. Thomas team. That was the one that jumped out to you that you thought. And certainly, here in that initial round of beating a Reinhardt team that we know has been there and done it for many, many years now. Well, many years, but a handful of years since they've joined and been a part of the NAIA football program. Yeah, that's an eyebrow raiser, certainly, this score. And it's like you said, the field goals early then really took it to the next level and punched in scores. 22 points in a quarter. That's like that. They got something cooking there for sure offensively.
They do. They're a very well put together football team. I look forward to seeing what they're going to do this week against Kaiser. So the second game of the day, we saw Ottawa, conference champion out of KCAC, not rated, come out against Dort, and Ottawa had a 73-yard score early in the first quarter to go up 7-0, and then 35 straight points from Dort to put this one away. Dort was very methodical in this game, running the football. Colton Cruzy at 74 yards passing. He also had 86 yards on the ground. Brendan Piper, 20 carries, 110 yards. Scored the first 4 touchdowns of the game for the defenders in this one. So Dort just very methodical, ran the ball well. Their defense held up Ottawa had a couple drives, start off kind of nice, get a first down, move the ball, and then just sputter. And it was unfortunate Ottawa wasn't able to put together maybe a little bit better performance for what they would have liked to have seen for themselves in the postseason. But ultimately, Dort proving why they were an at-large qualifier out of a conference like the GPAC, having only lost to Northwestern in the conference and then Midland, but then beating Morningside, just proved to be a little bit better team here in this one, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of called this one. This is the one we thought could be, probably was it the easiest one to pick? I'd say it was, just having a team that was, around that 500 mark with the automatic qualifier, like you mentioned. And Dort's really had a tremendous year. I mean, obviously knocking off, a traditional power of Morningside this year, and it really had put some good football together this last half of the season, winning some big football games. So, anxious to see the Northwestern now rematch with those guys. So, going to be a fun round 2. I guess we have to call it.
We'll call it round 2. It's just so weird when you have 16 teams playing in the second round now, when we've been so used to it other ways. But I do like how this opening round, the first round, has worked out to kind of give us a little bit better idea of those last 4 coming in, those last 8 coming in, and maybe giving us, I think, some better matchups even in this second round. We move on to the third game of the day, Louisiana Christian and Baker. Louisiana Christian got up 7-0 early in this game. Baker had a little bit of a faux pas on offense, fumbled the ball. Louisiana Christian was able to do a scoop and score to go up 7-0. They led 21-14 at half, and then Baker opened up the floodgates in the second half and just limited Louisiana Christian to basically nothing in the second half. You had Rashad Graves for Baker come out with 149 yards, 3 touchdowns in this game. They were able to really do some nice things defensively in the second half to put LCU down. I mean, Sal Palermo was 14 for 27, 177 yards, but threw 3 interceptions in this game. I think anytime you get in the postseason and you turn the ball over 3-4 times and you're still in a game, you're pretty lucky. If you can win that game, you're extremely lucky. And that's essentially what we saw happen here, Pat, is LCU, the turnovers just bit them in the second half. They weren't able to get as much going offensively. Dalen Charles had 122 yards on the ground for him, but ultimately Baker was able to kind of turn things up here in the second half and come away with the 56-28 victory. This did not look like it was going to be a blowout at all. Even in the third quarter, the game was still relatively close, and then the Wildcats of Baker, were able to come away with the 56-28 victory.
Yeah, so it's like 35-28 or so in the third. I mean, so it's a competitive game, kind of back and forth. First off, I think this is great. I mean, we talked about Louisiana Christian, really the inception of the show, talking about how great it is to have an NAIA program in that part of the country in Louisiana. Great to see them in the postseason. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for them to understand postseason play and something to build on for the future. And on top of that, going with Baker, traditional power team that's been there and done it. We talk about blue blood programs, been playing football in the NAIA for years and years, and matching up with the athletes that Louisiana Christian has, and to score points like that, I think that's a really good sign for Baker at this point, in the season, going into the second round and getting that offense going, having that confidence to put points on the board. So I think it's beneficial for both teams. Baker, we got him back deep in the playoffs again, where they should be, and Louisiana Christian building off this experience in year 1 in the playoffs.
Got to say what's up to Greg and Fred checking in on YouTube, throwing some comments out there. Appreciate you guys listening, and everybody checking us out on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook Live. Of course, you will be able to see this show throughout the week, replayed on all those platforms as well. But for those of you joining us live, if you've got a question, feel free to chime in. We'll be breaking down more games here in just a little bit as we go through the recap of everything in the first round and then move on to the NAIA second round. So this was a game that I think a lot of people wanted to see what was going to happen. You had Dickinson State, the conference champion out of the North Star Athletic Association, going up against Montana Tech, the third team in out of the Frontier Conference. And Montana Tech, a team this year that's had some really nice wins. They beat Central Washington, a D2 playoff qualifier, who won yesterday. So Montana Tech, who beat Central Washington, is out of the NAIA postseason, while the team they beat is still in the D2 postseason. So there's a lot of questions in this game. Would Dickinson State be able to match up with Montana Tech? I think a lot of people came into this game thinking, well, Montana Tech's in the Frontier. They've played tougher teams all year long. They're going to get this win. In Dickinson State, I watched this game. This was reminiscent of watching those Dickinson State football teams from the mid-2000s, when they had Jay Schillinger as a running back and they're running for 150, 200 yards a game, with one running back, little play action quarterback that was, able to, be efficient. That was a style of play that Dickinson State had yesterday. They were able to convert one of their interceptions of Blake Thielen into points, and that really ended up being the difference in this game as the Blue Hawks came away with a 35-28 victory. Brandon Zerhoff, 30 carries, 227 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And the most impressive part really was at the end of this game when Dickinson State got the ball back. I think there was 3.5 or 4 minutes remaining in this ball game, and Montana Tech needed to get a stop. If they would have got a stop, they could have got the ball back, potentially forced an overtime, or maybe gone for 2 and won it. And Dickinson State said, no, we're going to hand it off to Zerhoff. And they handed the ball off to Zerhoff, I think like 7 or 8 straight times, and just milked that last 3.5, 4 minutes out of this game before they put it away for victory. So big credit to Dickinson State going on the road 590 some miles to Butte, Montana to get this win over Montana Tech.
We talked about the challenges with that. You got to tip your cap to them, go on the road and win a football game like that, especially the way they did in a physical fashion, running the football, old school Dickinson State football. I know Coach Bijout's probably just smiling, seeing that style of play and the way that they won this football game. But yeah, you have a bell cow like that, hand the ball 30 plus times in a playoff game. Boy, that's old school NAIA football. That's back the old GPAC days, back of back when you were playing, Jason. You have that I formation or single back there. You just hand it back to 30 times and have them win the football game for you. So it's kind of a throwback in that regard. So so cool to see, and you got to tip your cap to those guys. That's a difficult thing to do, is travel like that and play at that level.
Yeah, and you look at Will Madler in this game. I mean, nine completions for 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's exactly what you want out of your quarterback in a situation like this. Cam Shepard comes away 4 catches, 126 yards and a score. Just uber efficient for Dickinson State in this game, and to get themselves an opportunity now to advance on to the second round of the NAIA Championship Series, where maybe they match up well against Grandview. We'll talk about that in just a little bit as we head into our first round matchups. And we'll just kind of start with the number 1 seed and work our way down through the rest of the pairings here as we look at the NAIA Championship Series. But before we jump into this too much, Pat, just any final thoughts on that opening round, those first 4 games that we saw before we get into breaking down? Because essentially, no offense to all those teams and all those games played last week, but this is the moment of the show where we forget about last week and we move on to next week.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you did a great job predicting kind of outcomes. You really had a pretty good, finger on the pulse of what was going on. We would talk about the travel and things like that. So the home teams definitely had that advantage. You see, Dickinson State kind of being the exception to that, and coming out with an old school football win of grinding the football and the run game and play action pass and winning a great game. But no, I think it's kind of how we predicted things to go in that initial round. And I think we're getting some great matchups here. You look at that initial round, I think it has certainly some merit. You're getting those automatic, those playoff, or excuse me, the conference champions that deserve to be in the postseason get in, see the outcome. You kind of get those matchups, maybe some of those blowout type games out of the way. Now you're getting some of the really core matchups, I think, of these teams that are, the true top 16 that are competing at that level.
As a coach, Pat, how would you think of this? You've had a week off now. You've been used to grind week after week, game after game. These teams had an opportunity to play this week, stay sharp, hopefully avoid the injury bug. And your team, now a top 8 seed, let's say, has sat idle for a week. Do you see any advantage or disadvantage? Obviously, you get another week to get healthy, but you win a week now without playing football when you've been so used to that throughout the NAIA football season.
I think after a 10 or 11 game regular season, I think it's good to have the week to get healthy, because no one's playing at 100%. I mean, at this point, and that's at any level of football. You get through halfway through the middle part of your regular season, you're not 100%. So I think that definitely can help. And the thing is, these coaches that they've made themselves crazy. Who are we going to get? What are the chances? Let's scout these teams and do all these things and watch these first round, matchups to see, get a leg up on potential opponents and that sort of thing. So I would say this point in the season, being as late as I think it's an advantage to get a week off and try to heal up. I think so. And again, those home teams can sit there and rest and be ready to go. I mean, there may be a little bit of rust here the first couple of drives, maybe the first couple of possessions in these games coming up on Saturday. But I think overall it's a benefit to get the week off this late in the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and start taking a look at some of these games before we get our special guest, who I just confirmed will actually be joining us. So, the first person that's not you or I on this show, Pat, officially, not just somebody calling me on my phone. So,
I'm as
crazy.
excited as anyone. I don't know who it is either, so it's going to be fun.
So looking at this first game, you've got Northwestern taking on Dort. They previously met earlier this year on the 21st of October. Northwestern won that game 35-14. That game was 17-7 at half. Jalen Gramstead, 20 for 23, 161 yards, 2 touchdowns in that game. Carried the ball 15 times for 64 yards. And they were able to limit Dort to 287 yards. Each team did have 1 turnover in that game. So an interesting matchup now as they go back to Northwestern to play this one. You can kind of see the breakdown of the 2 teams against one another there. Obviously, a lot more running the football from the defenders in this game. And Northwestern has just been such a juggernaut all year long. They've just been able to play their style of football, get those wins. Had a big win over D1 FCS Drake, who actually qualified as the Pioneer League postseason qualifier in the D1 FCS playoffs. Of course, Drake is going to play North Dakota State. That's how I kind of caught that one. I wasn't really paying attention to it. So there you go. But any thoughts on this one, Pat?
No, I mean, obviously a rematch. And as a coach, I hated those. I hate playing somebody twice in the same year. It is challenging. Obviously on paper from the earlier contest earlier in the season, Northwestern, handled them fairly well, 35-14. So again, you think on paper, the way it looks, the matchup, you think it's Northwestern all the way. But I will tell you, playing someone twice does present some challenges. Again, there's a familiarity standpoint of that matchup. The opposing coach knows you very, very well, and vice versa. So anything can happen, but at the same time, when you look at it from a standpoint of what has already taken place and kind of the tradition of the matchup, it's definitely favoring Northwestern.
Yeah, I definitely favor Northwestern in this one. I do like the fact the defenders were able to have a game last week where they were able to work some kinks out, maybe have that opportunity to bring themselves a little bit more cohesion on that running game. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do against Northwestern. Obviously, anytime that you get the opportunity to have a rematch, you already know that team a little bit, so that can be good and bad. So we break down this game, but we're going to push pause on that momentarily as we do have a special guest joining us. I think he can hear us. We're going to throw him up there anyway, even if he can't. See if I can maneuver the buttons here well enough to bring in our special guest here, Pat.
There he is.
Chris Oliver, head coach of the Georgetown College Tigers. Coach, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're getting along pretty decent. Pat has to put up with me every week, so I figured I'd bring somebody in that he knows that he can have an actual real football conversation with.
Yeah, it's helpful to give him a little bit of something to work with there, Jason.
Coach, good seeing you, man. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
No, you go ahead, Pat. You guys go way back. This is like homecoming. I'll just sit back here and drink my water.
It's crazy. Like, as long as we've known each other, Jason, I've known Coach Oliver longer than we've known each other. So,
yeah,
I think, Chris, we go back to about 99, 98, maybe, of probably coming across one another. Yeah.
I think 98 when St. Francis started. Just a few weird things, when Coach Donley, the other Coach Donley, started the program at St. Francis, and my brother was actually the sports information director there right when they were starting in 98. So I went up to Fort Wayne a few times, just hung around. I got to know Pat a little bit. We were very close in age. And then, small world type of situation as I look back on it now. I think in 1999, I believe that was the first time St. Francis Cougars made the postseason. I think that was year 2, and they came down to play at Georgetown College. And I came down to that game, was just there watching, the St. Francis Cougars in year 2 against Coach Cronin and the Georgetown Tigers. And I think that was Coach Cronin's 3rd or 4th year as the head coach, being back and get ready to win a couple national championships there. And to fast forward now, 20 plus years. And I took over for Coach Cronin and just hearing and I still have Coach Donnelly's phone number. I was told last summer, I had a reporter from the Lexington newspaper give me a call and said, I still have this as Kevin Donnelly's phone extension for the Georgetown campus. So it went from Coach Donnelly to Coach Cronin to me. We've been using the same phone number. It's just, kind of neat. They're a small world type of thing.
Are you still in Anderson Hall?
No, we're at we got out at the new conference center.
Good
remodel, so no more Anderson Hall for the coaches.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time there growing up as a kid, so
I've heard stories.
Very familiar.
Yeah, yeah.
Coach, you're heading into the second round. We keep screwing that up. The second round of the NAIA Championship Series. I just asked Pat the question of, having that off week. I know some coaches probably would like to keep playing, so you stay in a rhythm. But how have you handled having that off week and getting ready now to prepare to go up against Baker?
Well, I think it's one of those things where if you want to overthink it and convince yourself that it could be a negative, you could go that way. We tried to treat it as a positive for our guys. We're like everybody going into this part of the season. I mean, we've got those nicks and bumps and bruises, and I think that a little bit of time off physically and mentally was really good for our guys. So, we had 2 light practices last week. Gave our guys off Friday after class. Gave them off Saturday. Coaches were off. I watched a lot of internet football yesterday myself. I mowed the grass in the late morning. That was a different Saturday down here for sure. We came back today and had a team meeting and start to turn the page and work on, a really good Baker team. We used it as an opportunity for our guys to reset. And then the other thing too, and actually I remember Pat telling me years ago, we were talking one time and talked about how hard it is to travel and plan for Thanksgiving week. That's the toughest week to plan out in the playoffs. So I'm sure myself and the other 12 head coaches who were off last weekend, we spent a lot of time planning out, Thanksgiving logistics, and it's a challenge to be home and away in its own different ways. So the opportunity to plan that and not be doing that on 72 hours notice was really nice. And that allows us to get ahead of our practice planning and those types of things. There's going to be a lot of coaches around the country at the NAIA D2, D3 level who are going to practice this Wednesday and then have a long Wednesday night and trying to turn around to a Thursday morning practice, which is a great privilege to practice on Thanksgiving. But the logistics and the changes are real. So having that extra time was really nice.
Go ahead, Pat, if you got anything.
Coach,
we don't have hand signals or anything worked out yet.
Right.
But go
We're
right
only
ahead.
a few hundred miles away here, but just kind of curious, Coach. Like, what is your approach on Thursday? Are you going to have the team stick around? Or are you letting them go home? And there's some challenges there.
Yeah, for sure. I've been fortunate to practice on Thanksgiving a number of times now, and we've gone on the road. I went through a couple itineraries today, looking at some travel that we used to do. We're trying to project what our opponent was going to do. But then being at home, I think it's the mental side of that challenge, because as much as guys want to practice on Thanksgiving and want to be there, sometimes you still get that homesick type of tug and type of feel. So we've done it different ways over the years. I've had a year where we were home and where we did not let any of the official party go. And I've had a year where we were home and where we excused guys. And I think there's pluses and minuses to both. So we looked at a couple things this week. One, we're going to be blessed with good weather. So we're not going to have any type of situation where guys are traveling in precipitation, ice, snow, because that has to be a factor. So we set a couple hour time limit of a drive away from campus. We're going to have a team meal after our morning practice. And then guys who were within that, couple hour circle are going to be approved to go home, and we're going to be back on Friday morning around 11 o'clock. So that way we, can try to get the best of both worlds, make sure all our teammates are taken care of. Teammates are going home with teammates or coming to a coach's house. Everybody's taken care of. I think it goes both ways. And when I was fortunate to be a student coach at Ohio State, I didn't know what I was doing. I was a fly on the wall. I was just trying to take things in. But I remember we played Michigan, at the Big House, and it was Thanksgiving weekend, And here's Big Ten football, one of the biggest games in the country. And we practiced Thanksgiving morning, and Coach Tressel let everybody go home Thursday night. And, we had to be back in Columbus in the morning and get on a bus and go to Ann Arbor. So I figured, well, if the Buckeyes can do that and coaches can do that, we can make that work. And I think, too, there's a lesson there of, hey, during COVID 3 years ago, we all made changes. We had to make it work. And there's a lot of different ways to be successful. So we want our guys to be able to enjoy their family and be safe and be back here and be ready to go.
Awesome to have you joining us, Coach. You are the first official outside guest into this program. So when I go writing the Victory Sports Network history book in 30 years, I'll make sure that's at least a small footnote in there.
Well, the good news is, too, about attracting future guests is that there's nowhere to go but up. So that's the positive for you. Is we set the bar low, and you can attract other people.
I want to go down memory lane a little bit because you guys remember, obviously, when you first met. But, Coach, do you remember the first time you and I actually met?
I would guess it was at one of the conventions. But
you are correct.
Okay. All right.
Orlando.
Okay. I would believe that.
It was like 04, 05, something like that. And you were part of Dale Carlson's staff at Ohio Dominican at that time. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I tweeted a few months ago, right before the season, I was cleaning out my office and found a couple of the old magazines, and man, those were awesome. Those were so well done. I've got some around here. Here, I'm going to pull one off the shelf. Hold on.
There you go. That is awesome. I do have to admit something to Coach Oliver once he gets back on here with us. There you go.
So we printed this. I tried to, I had that, and our guy Chris Reiser, who's the head coach at Tiffin University, who's undefeated in Division II right now.
Playing unbelievably now, yeah.
But you had him on the cover of that one in 08, and we got him to sign that frame. That's been hanging in my office for a long time, and we found a couple other. That was an awesome thing, Jason. And the time that you put into that, and the just the quality for the kids, and that was a neat deal.
The plan is to try to bring it back this summer. Maybe not a print edition. There's a lot of cost in that, but to at least be able to have an online PDF book that you could potentially have. That's the idea. So what I have to admit to you, Coach, so I honestly, at that time when you tweeted me, I had no foot in the door for the Victory Sports Network. I could go on and write on the website if I wanted to at that time, but you tweeted that, and it got, honest to God, got me thinking, like, gosh, I've been away 10 years. I still follow this every day. And it got my brain going. Okay, how can I make it work in my life? If I redid the website and what we were doing with the Victory Sports Network, how could I make it work? But I'm being 100% honest. Your tweet to me last summer made me start going, God, I miss that. I miss being able to do this and talk to coaches. And honestly, like, my family members certainly appreciate it, because I would be at Thanksgiving going, well, Baker had to travel to Georgetown this week. It's going to be a really good game. And they're just like, shut up.
Yeah.
We do not care.
This gives you a better outlet than that.
Yeah, I could talk to people that truly follow it and are in on it. So I do honestly thank you for sending that tweet to me, Coach, because honestly, without it, I don't know if I would be back doing this show and back running VSN the way I am right now.
That's really neat. That's neat.
That is
There's
awesome.
just so many questions we can ask you, but I know your time is valuable as your preparation here. You want to give us a little bit of your initial thoughts of Baker and the matchup this Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, they're impressive. And it's cliche. Hey, there's only 16 left. Everybody's good. That is true. But you turn on the video. Explosive on offense. Quarterback's doing a great job and can keep you honest with his legs. And he gave Louisiana Christian some trouble in the second half the other day with his legs. You got a defense that's leading the country in interceptions, 25 interceptions in 11 games. I just made a cut up of every interception. I was like, all right, we got to see what's going on here. I mean, they're very good on defense. I mean, they've got 5 first-team all Hart South guys on that defense, 2 inside linebackers that are really, really good. They've got an inside linebacker with 8 interceptions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, an inside linebacker. He has 8 interceptions. I think he's second in the country in interceptions individually, which, 8 interceptions for a safety would be a heck of a year. 8 interceptions for a guy that plays in the box is unheard of. They're just a very well coached team. They're a tough team, so they're impressive. We're gonna have our hands full. We're looking forward to it.
It should be a great one coming up here this Saturday, Coach. We appreciate you taking some time with us here. I'll throw it back to you if you got anything for us. Otherwise, we'll let you get back to prep and the family and everything that you've got to take care of this week.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you guys. It's good to see you back, Jason, and good to see you, Pat. And you guys keep up the good work.
All right. We appreciate it, Coach. You have best of luck this weekend, and hopefully we'll be talking to you. Well, we'll be talking to you again down the road again at some point when I actually start doing official formal interviews with coaches. But I do appreciate you coming on.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
We'd love to have you back, Coach. Got a lot of questions for you, buddy.
All right. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Best of luck, Coach. Wish you all the best.
See you.
Take care.
That is Chris Oliver. He is the head coach for the Georgetown Tigers. How was that for a special guest there, Pat?
Loved it. Great friend. We go way, way back, obviously. And so cool that someone playing in the playoffs. I was thinking maybe it's somebody that's out that had give us a little bit more insight to maybe some of the matchups, but no, a guy that's in it. And I know his time is valuable. We certainly appreciate him jumping on. But there is no one, Jason, of being around a long time and playing against Coach quite a few times at Ohio Dominican and Lindsey Wilson. Who's more prepared. So he's a thorough guy. You hear the cut-ups and the details, tough word to say, statistics. Easy for me to say. He's prepared. He knows all that stuff right now. And again, he's getting into the details of his game plan. He is very, very thorough. So impressive coach. Again, no mystery. He's had the success that he's had in winning a national championship just a handful of years ago. So this is going to be a fun matchup. I know the Tigers will be prepared, and he has a lot of respect for Baker, as you can hear.
Yeah, I've got 1,000 questions because I just want to know. I'm an NAIA dork, as we know, and I just want to ask, what was it like Ohio State to Ohio Dominican, then Ohio Dominican to Lindsey Wilson, and then you win a championship. You go to, and it's like I'll probably talk for hours on that, but we don't have time for that tonight. We need to get to the rest of the NAIA Championship Series, and the next game up on the docket, the number 2 team in the country, Grandview, taking on Dickinson State, who just came away with a great victory over Montana Tech this last week, 35-28. These teams have met before back in the football championship series, round 1 back in 2021. Grandview winning that game. You kind of see a rundown of both teams there. Offensively, both teams put up a good number of points, but the one statistic, and we've talked about it a lot this year, that stands out: defensive scoring. Grandview, 5.3 points per game. That is a ridiculous defense that the Vikings have got.
Top defense in the country against a physical running offense with complementary play action game with that. I will say from matchup, a great structured defense that defends the run well. A great play action game does present some issues. I like this matchup, Jason, for what Dickinson just did and the type of team they are, what they do in the run game, and like we mentioned, the complementary passing game. I think this is a good matchup. And again, maybe Grandview's like, oh man, this is an interesting one because they're so physical. Obviously, we know Grandview's the prowess on defense and what they've done this year, but this is a tough matchup for them with a physical team coming in. So this is going to be interesting.
It really is. I think this is a game where if Grandview gets the ball first and Dickinson can get a stop, or if Dickinson gets the ball first and they grind out one of those methodical 9-minute, 10-minute drives, 15 plays where 13 of them are on the ground and they just grind it to them, they've really got a chance in this game to make some noise. Now, with that said, if Grandview comes out and they just swarm defensively and shut down the run in this game, it could be a very long day for Dickinson if that happens. And it will be interesting on Saturday to see which one of the two scenarios plays out.
Yeah, Dickinson has to be able to run the football. And again, if Grandview just comes and slams that door initially, now you're getting obvious passing situations. That takes Dickinson out of their game plan. Like you said, that would be the greatest challenge for Dickinson State if that ends up happening.
I really was impressed by Dickinson State's performance this last weekend, so it should be a really nice ball game in Des Moines, Iowa, whereas Coach Oliver alluded to, good weather at this point when you look at the forecast through the rest of the week. Really good weather for the rest of these games. We go to the other rematch this week. Previously, St. Thomas and Kaiser. matched up back on October 7th. It was Kaiser coming away with a 21-14 victory in that game. It was 21-7 at the half. Quarterback Bryce Beasley was 10 of 13 in this ball game, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. Had 11 yards rushing for a touchdown as well. Rontavious Farmer for St. Thomas University, 19 carries, 73 yards, and Keely Watson, their quarterback, was 12 of 33 for 158 yards in that game. These are two teams that have played one another a lot in the last couple of years. Should be an interesting rematch.
This is the game I'm most looking forward to watching, Jason, truthfully. I think there is tons and tons of speed and talent. And obviously what St. Thomas just did to Reinhardt, which we know is a quality football program, they're hot right now. And again, you talked about having the week off or playing. Is there a benefit? Is there an advantage, having that? And if you're St. Thomas, you're feeling really good about yourself. You've got a lot of confidence going into this, rivalry game. I guess it is at this point a rivalry game with proximity and the amount of times that they played. So if you're St. Thomas, you're feeling good. If you're Kaiser, yeah, we've rested up. But this team coming in here is hot. We got to make sure we show up and play a great football game. They obviously had a tight one earlier in the year, but this is going to be an exciting game.
Yeah, I'm just really looking forward to this one. It's obviously a rematch for something that's going to mean a little bit more. One of these teams will go on to the quarterfinal round. If Kaiser wins this game, somebody's going to have to travel to Kaiser. If St. Thomas wins this game, St. Thomas is probably going to be going somewhere the next round, and that opens up all sorts of scenarios. So this could be a very interesting outcome, not only for the two teams involved, but for the NAIA and trying to figure out who goes there or where do we send them, depending on who wins. The key stat in this game that I look at, St. Thomas so heavy on the run last week, and the rushing defense, of Kaiser, 87 yards per game. They really held up St. Thomas the first time that these two teams played. The other thing too is Kaiser came away with a nice victory here. They led 21-7 at the half, came away 21-14 victory. This game, I believe, had a 1-hour weather delay in it. It may have even went longer than that because I watched the first half. It was a night game. It went into weather delay, and that weather delay got extended, and I'm old. And I said, I will watch the rest of this game another time or check the stats in the morning. I'm going to bed. So I didn't watch the entire game the first time they played, but there was a weather delay in that game.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume this time of year it's going to be great weather in South Florida. So hopefully that's a good setting from a weather standpoint to get the best out of these teams. And again, you got a hot St. Thomas team against Kaiser, who's had a tremendous year and with a week of rest. And let's see how the matchup unfolds here next Saturday.
We had just talked to Coach Oliver, the head coach of the Georgetown College Tigers. If you're joining us live and you missed it, you can check it out on the replay. But they go up against Baker this week, and Georgetown at 8-1 this year has really been rolling these last couple of weeks. That offense has come along. The defense is really holding down the run, fewer than 100 yards per game on the rushing defense side. This is a quality matchup. Baker came through with a very nice victory this last weekend over Louisiana Christian, 56-28. These two teams have met before, but really everybody involved with the programs at that time now has moved on. We've got new coaching staffs, new players in on both sides. So this is really a fresh matchup for these two teams. Yeah,
completely different scenario here. And like you said, Jason, I think Baker did a tremendous job, with the opportunity last Saturday. Played extremely well. And Coach Oliver, you hear the respect that he has for what they've done lately. And he's preparing his team for a tremendous matchup. And again, he's sitting there thinking, yeah, we have the Thanksgiving holiday, but we do have an advantage. That travel for Thanksgiving is a challenge. I know we played Baker when I was at St. Francis on Thanksgiving weekend. They left on Wednesday, Jason.
Wow.
From Kansas coming to Fort Wayne. So they took it real serious and, had a plan with the trip to make sure they gave their guys the best opportunity for success. Again, that was a handful of years ago. I'm not sure that's the same type of plan. It's not nearly as far of a trip as well. But, it's significant travel, and they got to do it over a holiday, and I'm sure they're going to do the best they possibly can in planning that trip to give them a great chance. And that's going to be a good matchup too. Two great offenses. And I think, you look at the defensive side, that's going to be who shows up, who plays the best defensively to win that football game on Saturday.
So many of these games come down to turnovers, and you heard Coach Oliver talk to us about it. The Baker Wildcats very good at creating turnovers and doing the most with those turnovers with their defense. Ultimately, a lot of these playoff games end up being decided by turnovers. So that could be something to watch for in this game coming up on Saturday. So we move into another rematch that we had from earlier this year, St. Xavier and Marion. Marion came away with a 28-21 victory back on September 9th. Hold on. I got to get my notes out on this one again. I'm not reciting this from memory for anybody that seems to think I'm just got all this up there. 21-14 at the half in this one. Marion's William Gibson, 22 carries, 94 yards out of the backfield, had a score. Zach Bundelow, 16 of 26 for 190 yards. Did have one interception, but did have 2 rushing touchdowns in this game. Aiden Voss for St. Xavier was 15 of 23 for 131 yards, had a touchdown, but threw 3 interceptions. He also added 29 yards rushing. The key statistic overall in this game, total offense, Marion, 318 yards to 173 yards for St. Xavier. This was early in the season. This is a week 2 game. I think St. Xavier was on murderer's row because they started with St. Francis, Indiana. They then went to Marion, and then they had Indiana Wesleyan. So I think the St. Xavier team we'll see in the playoffs is going to be entirely different than the team that Marion saw back on the 9th of September.
I would like this matchup, Jason, much more if it was in Chicago. And I wouldn't be, obviously. St. Xavier is a great, great team at home. For whatever reason, they've not done well in Indianapolis. In my time, really paying attention to this matchup from playing these teams over the years. And with that being said, if St. Xavier takes care of the football, and again, they're an air raid football team on the offensive side. They're going to throw the ball. That's who they are. They're going to chuck it a whole bunch. If they can protect the football and make really good decisions and give their guys a chance, I like this matchup because they're really contrasting teams, in my opinion. You've got kind of the high risk. They're going to throw the football. They're going to be aggressive on defense, talking about St. Xavier. And then Marion is really, bend, don't break, play really sound defense, tackle well, pursue the football very, very well. Offensively, it's run game. It's conservative RPO. Don't make mistakes. So it's kind of contrasting teams in that regard. So it kind of makes an interesting matchup. But I think if St. X can protect the ball and give themselves a chance, 3 turnovers in the previous matchup, Jason, earlier in the year, and it's a 1-score game. That tells you a lot. So I think that's really interesting. 2 good football teams. I've seen them both play in person this year. We talked about before. I thought St. X was a playoff team. We talked about that possible play-in game, or it was the playoff game 3 weeks ago against Roosevelt. I thought they were a playoff team watching them in person. So I like this matchup a lot. Like I mentioned before, 2 contrasting styles, but it's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens on Saturday in Indy.
Yeah, I would agree. It's great to see these rematches. If I'm Marion, I don't know if I love this rematch because St. Xavier's had an opportunity to maybe look at the mistakes they made in that game, and it was already a tight game. Now, Marion at home, I like the home field advantage. I like how Marion finished their season as well. I mean, they're seconds away from a victory over Indiana Wesleyan and finishing the season completely undefeated. So this is a quality Marion program. And I said back at the start of the NAIA football season, with the teams that were rated in the top 4 at that time, you had Morningside, you had Northwestern, you had Kaiser up there, and I'm trying to remember who the other one was. Oh, Grandview as well. I go, you take out the top 4. My favorite at that time to win a national championship was Marion, and I still think Marion has got the dudes on their team to do that, but tall task in front of them this week, matching up again with St. Xavier out of their Mid-States Football Association.
If Marion's going to make a deep run, Jason, this is going to be a rough playoff stretch. I mean, St. X round 1, if they happen to get through this one, you're probably looking at Indiana Wesleyan again. I mean, there's a lot to be played out here the next few weeks with this mid-states region of how it's all going to shake out.
I really hope, let's just, crystal ball, Marion wins and Indiana Wesleyan wins, or if St. Xavier wins, give us a matchup next round that is not a rematch of the Mid-States Football Association. I don't want to see those teams play one another next week again, maybe get an opportunity to go against somebody else, but regional pairings, regional matchups, that's just my plea to anybody in the on the NAIA Championship Committee watching this. Just could we try? If there's an opportunity, let's please, maybe. We go on to the other Mid-States Football Association team, Indiana Wesleyan, playing host to the Morningside Mustangs. These two teams have never met one another, and it's almost like they're meeting one another at similar times in their history. The Mustangs bounced back a little bit last season, didn't make it to the championship game. This year, they've got 2 losses. Indiana Wesleyan got bounced from the playoffs last year by Northwestern. Both teams are championship level, championship quality programs. They just got to find a way to get over the hump, get that big playoff win to get themselves back on track. And there's only going to be one of them that does it this year between Indiana Wesleyan and Morningside. This is the matchup that has me really salivating for the second round of the NAIA Championship Series.
I think it has the most intrigue when it comes to a non-traditional year for Morningside. Again, here they are in the playoffs, 9-2. But when have they ever lost 2 games in the season? When have they ever traveled, this early in the playoffs? I mean, I guess it's been probably since 2016 in this round. I think is the last time they traveled in Thanksgiving weekend. Then Indiana Wesleyan being that kind of that upstart team, again, a team that's on the rise and have been now since their inception a few years ago. It's 6 or 7 years ago at this point. So I think there's a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of storylines here of kind of what happens, with where these two teams are today. With Indiana Wesleyan, losing to a late season matchup, who have dominated all year, had a tight game they won against a rival Marion, lose against Concordia in a game they shouldn't have won on paper or lost on paper, and Morningside dropping 2 regular season games in their conference, which hasn't happened in 70 some odd games. So there's a lot of storyline, points here with this matchup, a lot of them, and I can't predict it, Jason, to be honest, because we know the type of coaching staff Morningside has. Again, they're going to be uber prepared. There's no question about it. The travel is significant. I will say that. It's a 2-day trip. I mean, they're going to be leaving on Thanksgiving Day. I would guarantee it. You're talking that's a 10-hour trip, I would assume, in that range. So that's going to be a factor, I think. But again, I think if anyone can prepare their players and have been there and done it, it's certainly Morningside. So I'm really intrigued by this one from that standpoint. And again, like we talked about, the matchup and the storylines all behind it.
Pat, all season long, we've kind of had this question mark about Morningside. Like, we've watched them. They've had multiple quarterbacks. They've had some different issues on offense and all this stuff. But then you look at these statistics, and if I were to tell you, yeah, Morningside's ran 3 or 4 quarterbacks sometimes in the same game, you would not look at that as being an offense putting up 426 yards a game, 200 rushing, over 200 passing. Like, your mind wouldn't be able to wrap around that. If somebody's playing that many quarterbacks, you usually think there's these giant struggles on offense, but they've still found a way to be able to produce offensively and put up numbers like this, that as you go right across the board, they match up to what Indiana Wesleyan does. And we think Indiana Wesleyan's got a great looking offense.
No doubt. I mean, if Morningside could pull this together, and again, if they can find some continuity, behind center, whoever that may be, or still may be multiple guys, they're a force to be reckoned with in this playoff. There's no doubt about it. This matchup is challenging. We travel, the holiday. There's a lot of different things that are going to be challenges for them. But this is, I'm with you. I mean, look at the stats. Look at the stuff in front of you right now. On paper, this is a juggernaut matchup. I mean, this is a big one.
This is going to be a great game. It'll be played this coming Saturday. We look forward to watching that one. The next one we get to is Bethel at 10-1 out of the Mid-South Conference, an at-large qualifier, going up against Evangel, the champion out of their half of the KCAC division, 11-0, undefeated. They get to go on the road to take on a very strong Bethel team who offensively led the nation. Well, right now, for statistics of teams in the NAIA postseason, they are the leading offense in the postseason. Ottawa, Arizona scored more points per game this season, but at 44.6, that's the highest scoring offense left in the postseason. Defense only giving up 12.5 a game, going up against Evangel. Here's a team that, I'll admit, I've watched Evangel this year. I still can't say I know a lot about them and what their identity is. They run the ball pretty well. They throw it. They don't really side one way or another. They're pretty balanced. Their defense is done pretty well. But they're coming out of a KCAC who has not fared very well in the postseason historically. So this could be an opportunity for Evangel maybe to make some noise, get a win over Bethel, over a quality conference, quality program, and put themselves on the map. Or it could be more of the same of what we have seen. That's why we play the games. That's why we're looking forward to Saturday.
It's the best team they played thus far. I mean, that's an obvious statement of the year. And they have an opportunity to erase that stigma of the KCAC. and their struggles in the postseason. So, what better opportunity than to play head-to-head against a great football team on the road, Thanksgiving weekend. What a cool setting. I think Bethel, Tennessee has one of the best facilities around, great game day atmosphere. So it's going to be an awesome experience for the Valors. So another great matchup. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. You have an undefeated team who has really played exceptional football. You're kind of a team of destiny. We saw they're going to be an undefeated team, had some tight games late, but, found a way to become undefeated in that conference, and now really truly being tested with a great football program. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see what happens in this matchup. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, you go right down the numbers there. Bethel's offense is something that Evangel probably has not seen quite as much offensive power in the team this year. So it'll be very interesting to see how this Mid-South Conference and KCAC Conference matchup goes on Saturday. And we get to maybe the other game that gets overlooked because it's a rematch of these two teams, but it's going to be an extremely good game. College of Idaho, Montana Western. Montana Western will get this game in Dillon this week. They played earlier this season at Simplot Stadium in Caldwell, Idaho. College of Idaho gets the victory, 37-35. Now, going into my trusty statistics booklet here, College of Idaho, this game, 21-21 at halftime. It was 35-31 with 1:04 left in this game. Final score, 37-35. As you see it, John Schofield caught a 25-yard pass from Andy Peters as time expired. Schofield finished the game with 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. Peters was 23 of 39 for 335 yards and 2 scores. Michael Pallandry for Western, 16 of 24 for 244 yards through the air. He threw 3 touchdown passes. 2 of those were to Eli Norse, 7 catches, 106 yards there. So this was a fantastic matchup back on September 9th. Now they get to play again in the postseason. Should be an awesome rematch. You can look at the statistics there. I think the offense will be plentiful in this game.
I got to see the times of these games, Jason. We got to get multiple screens. We got to get all these games playing, because another great matchup. I mean, a repeat from last play of the game victory for College of Idaho. I'm a huge Peters fan. I think he is one of the best players I've seen in the NAIA this year, and he's going to be obviously a huge factor, both run and pass, for the Coyotes. So I think he's an X factor. But looking at this matchup again, what you just said, revisiting the game on September 9th, this is going to be outstanding. I wonder how the weather's going to be up in Dillon.
From what I had looked at, it looks like everything is looking decent for the weekend. Now, granted, I looked at this last night when the pairings came out, and who can trust a 7-day forecast, but it looked okay. Check it out later this week, and I'll have a little bit more of a rundown on it. And when I do my article for the website later on this week, I want to flip through something real quick here. This game was on September 9th. Okay. We go back for other previous games. Marion and St. Xavier played on September 9th. We go back to other previous games. That one was on October 7th for a rematch, and October 21st. So 2 of the biggest games and 2 of the rematches that we're seeing in the postseason were both played on September 9th. Who knew that week that we'd be seeing a preview to the NAIA Championship Series? Should be some great football games, coming up this coming weekend across the nation.
So exciting. I don't remember, Jason, and again, I know this is the Thanksgiving weekend. We have the round of 16 now. Again, I'm so accustomed to this being the round of 8. I'll say that forever because I'm the old guy, right? We talk about this is good at matchups if I can ever remember, even for a round of 16. You don't have that match like, oh, that's going to be a blowout. You just have those. And not to be that way in times past. And, we've been through this a long time. You just see those games that just jump out to you. It's like, this isn't going to be close.
Yeah.
I don't think you could say that in these matchups, Jason. I think every one of these, it's tooth and nail, man. You're down to 1-score games. I think late, 2-minute drill situations, last-second field goals. We're going to see some fireworks, I think, this weekend.
I really think so too. It should be a great round of matchups. I think what last week did is it gave us the opportunity to have some teams that were supposed to be evenly matched play one another. The winners obviously advance, and it gives us an opportunity to have even better games this week. Up on the board right now, you kind of see the individual stat leaders as we head into the championship series. Joaquin Collazo of Bethel leading in the passing category. Rontavious Farmer at 128 yards per game running. Eli Norse leading in receiving yards per game for teams in the postseason. Collazo right there again with passing touchdowns, and Farmer again for rushing touchdowns. J.D. Dixon receiving touchdowns. So we talked about that high-powered offense of Bethel. They have a bunch of leaders up here. Touchdown to interception ratio. This is one I had to actually calculate myself, Pat, because the NAIA website doesn't do it. But Michael Palindry of Montana Western is the leader in touchdown to interception ratio at 8.3, 25 touchdowns to 3 interceptions this year is what he has. That should be a slash on that. In second is the quarterback, from Grandview. Those two are it's 25-3 and 21-3 or 23-3. But Tristan Waugh from Grandview leading in sacks with 14, and Bradley Myers from Evangel leading the nation in tackles per game. So some great athletes we're going to be seeing playing this next round.
No doubt. It'll be exciting.
So my picks, and you can chime in if you want on this. By the way, I hold the right to change these as I do more research before I write my article that'll come out on Tuesday. But this was my initial gut. I've got Northwestern over Dort. I'm going to say 42-10. Grandview over Dickinson, 35-14. I think Grandview's just going to be hungry, and they're going to hold Dickinson down, but I would not be surprised if that game ends up being a 28-21, 28-24 style game. I think Dickinson does have some of the tools to make that a very good game. Kaiser, St. Thomas, I think we see a very, very much of a rematch like what we did the game before, with Kaiser coming away victorious, but St. Thomas is going to give them everything they want. And then I've got Georgetown over Baker by 2 scores. Anything you want to throw in on those, Pat?
Wouldn't disagree with any of those scores. I think the Dickinson State Grandview game, I'm with you on that. I think that can get real interesting because of the matchup. The type of team, type of offense that Dickinson State has with that great Grandview defense. I think if any team out there that's like, oh boy, that's a tough matchup. Like I mentioned before, I think it's that one for Grandview's defense.
Yeah, really do. And that Kaiser St. Thomas game,
Oh,
I
boy.
feel good about where that is right now. I want to do a little more research on that one. I may flip that one, but I still, my gut is with Kaiser and what they've been able to do this year. The last half of the games, I've got Marian over St. Xavier, 24-14. I think Indiana Wesleyan will beat Morningside at home in about a 10-point game, 31-21. I see Bethel putting up a lot of points on Evangel, winning that game 42-21. And I see Montana Western getting the vengeance of their loss they had earlier this season in a very tight 35-31 game. I'm less sure about this group than I was the first group of games that I predicted, Pat.
Yep, I like the scores. I think you're spot on. Again, the home teams, you're seeing that consistency here again. Them coming out on top. I think it's a big deal this round, and that's probably good for a score, in my opinion. If you're doing, I know you're the gambler, I'm not, but that's that point spread deal. I think it's worth a score. I really believe that, especially the holiday weekend. So I think those home teams definitely have an advantage.
Well, they say in the world of gambling, home field is usually about a 7-point advantage, 6, somewhere through there. Turnovers can change a game 3.5 points as you look at it. So turnovers are always key. So if you're going on the road and you can force a couple turnovers, that's going to take away that home field advantage. And then you got a pretty even game. And that's what all these road teams need to look at. You have to play mistake-free football on offense, force some turnovers on defense. You're going to get yourself a chance. And I am not a coach. That is just coach speak that I am repeating to people. But I would think I say at least that feels pretty accurate, Pat, to what we have talked about throughout this year.
No doubt. The margin of error is so slim. Again, you have these type of matchups. Take care of the football. You're right. Play good, solid defense. Tackle well and take care of the football. Those are recipes for success. And like you said, those home teams. And I believe that, especially at this level too. I think it's worth at least a 7-point situation for those home teams. I truly believe that, especially this round. Coach Oliver talked about it. And, we kind of talk about some of his ancillary behind-the-scenes stories with NAIA football. I love, that question that you asked with Coach Oliver, just kind of finding out like what the details are, Or did I ask that question? I might have asked the
I
question.
think you did.
I think it's interesting because it's behind the scenes stuff. People are saying, "Oh, we're going to go show up on Saturday." Well, you have Thanksgiving holiday. What are you going to do to limit those distractions as much as possible to prepare for a playoff game? So, I think that's interesting. But I think the home teams definitely have a significant advantage, especially in this round. I don't think it's as big a deal next round. I believe that. So we'll see how it goes. But I think it's a good score advantage. A 7-point advantage, and like you said, you can really turn the tide on that if you're the away team by controlling the turnover margin and things of that nature. So I think your point is well taken, Jason. I do.
And you look at a game this week like St. Thomas and Reinhardt, we kind of figured that would be a closely contested game, two teams that would play a little tighter than that. And Reinhardt was unable to force turnovers early. Their offense didn't execute the way that they wanted it to in that first half. And St. Thomas was able to take advantage. And that's what happens in those games when you've got home field advantage and you've got a team that's been on an 8-hour bus ride coming down to play at your house. The same thing could happen this week. If you come out flat, that's what also intrigued me about that Ottawa-Dort game is Ottawa was able to get on the board right away before Dort was able to kind of turn things up on them. And same thing with LCU Baker. LCU got the turnover early, had the lead at halftime, had the opportunity there before Baker was able to take over. So you've got to take advantage of those mistakes if you are the away team to give yourself an opportunity to advance in the NAIA Championship Series.
That's why we play them. See how it all shakes out.
I feel like that's the end of football talk. So for anybody that's followed this show, like we run through the games, we do the predictions, we talk back and forth. Usually I throw it to Pat one last time, just to say, hey, you got anything else to add about these games this week, which I'll do right now. But this is nearing the end of football talk and approaching just Pat and Jason babbling at one another for a few minutes.
I think we nailed it. I think tremendous job. It was great having Coach Oliver on. And we do need a follow-up interview. I find, like you said before, this is kind of off topic. I find the dynamic of starting Lindsey Wilson, leaving Lindsey Wilson for the rival school. That's stuff that I want to ask. And I'm sure he knows that's coming in the second interview. And then, playing those guys and, beat him in a tight game this year. And what he's done, really bringing Georgetown back to national prominence. It's that interview I'm looking forward to because that's the stuff that I enjoy hearing. But hearing that our first interview of Dannelly and Donley, that's pretty cool. Having Chris Oliver, national championship coach, and at least get a few minutes of his time. So I thought that was really cool tonight.
I think there's some interesting dynamics, and we kind of talked about it a little bit there. Coach Oliver started under Dale Carlson in the NAI world. He was a student coach at Ohio State, so you can't throw out like he wasn't with Jim Tressel for a while. Like that's a pretty good pedigree there too. But was with Dale Carlson, Ohio Dominican. Coach Chris Reisert. Chris Reisert goes on to Tiffin now as a coach. Coach Oliver moves to a head coaching role with Lindsey Wilson, goes to Georgetown. Dale Carlson moves on. He had a couple different jobs. And then you think about Georgetown. So Georgetown's recent head coach was Bill Cronin, who was an assistant under Kevin Donley when Kevin Donley was the head coach at Georgetown. And of all of those, there's only one of them. Well, I guess I need to check up on Dale Carlson. I don't know if he's coaching anywhere right now, but there's only one right now of the dynamic that has retired, Bill Cronin, and he was younger and working for Coach Donley, who is still coaching right now. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic that Kevin's still going on and Bill has retired.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. And they're obviously very, very close and dear friends. And, Dad was in their wedding and, I was in the wedding as a kid. And, so we've known that family a long time. And yeah, I was so happy when Chris got that job just because Georgetown college football to the NAIA is a big deal, as you know. I mean, the history of the program and, Dad won the first national championship when he was the head coach there in 1991. I was a little guy and remember that very fondly and really a special place. And that program continued to build from there. When Dad left in 92, Coach Cronin comes in 96 and within a couple of years wins back-to-back national championships and puts Georgetown college football back on the map. And his sustained success that he had for all those years and building facilities and all the things there at Georgetown. Then seeing Coach Oliver take over, a personal friend, a family friend, and so excited to see him, giving that program to, a person that we knew, from our family standpoint. And, it was exciting to see and so happy for him. And, it was an honor for him to join us tonight to take time out of his busy schedule. So, yeah, that was one of my favorite moments so far of the young history of the Dannelly and Donley show here.
It took
NAIA football.
everything in my power. I was like a dog on a leash when he started talking, and he was saying, well, when it followed St. Francis down to Georgetown when they were playing in the late 90s. And I'm just sitting over going, Eddie Evenson. Eddie Evenson was a player of the year, and he was a quarterback at Georgetown at that time. It's just my stupid NAIA brain going.
We can go back and talk, and I think this is off season type discussions of some of the best players you saw in the NAIA's history. Eddie Evenson, you definitely put in that category. Talk about the defenses those guys had. My goodness, It was a nightmare. We were really good on offense, and we're just like, there's nothing we can do. I mean, these guys are just all 11 guys ran the football. So anyway, the history of Georgetown College, and it's great to see Coach Oliver, a team in the top 10, competing here, hosting a playoff round here in Thanksgiving weekend. So excited for them. And we said this before, and I may have made this comment before. I think when you have those traditional powers, those blue bloods, when they're successful, it's better for the NAIA. That's just kind of my feeling on it. So, Georgetown being one of those. So it can be a good matchup this weekend. Look forward to see what happens with them and Baker.
There was really a passing of the torch really from the 90s to the early 2000s to the late 2000s when we think of blue blood programs. And then that really from 2010 to 2020, there was a lot more parity in the NAIA. Now, granted, you had Morningside win a couple. You had St. Xavier get in there out of the Mid-States Football Association. You had Marion come in, get a couple of them there as well. But, really you had Georgetown in the late 90s to the early 2000s. You had Carroll get in there. Then you had the University of Sioux Falls get in there. And then we kind of got into the 2010. So when you start talking 20-year ago history in the NAIA, it was awesome to see those dominant teams. But I like what we have right now where you're not just looking at the top four going, those two might have a chance, but those guys, that's who everybody's got to beat. And I don't think anybody's going to beat them.
You think the last, good 10 or 12 years, how many different national champions have we had? I mean, it's like you said, the parity. It's a great thing. I do think that's the right thing. It's why, professional sports, not to get into that whole thing, but salary caps happen for that reason. So you don't have those teams that can just buy talent like Major League Baseball does that. I know your Kansas City Royals were the exception a handful of years ago, but you're buying talent. The salary cap kind of keeps things, more parity at that level. And I think we're seeing that too with NAIA football. The parity is a good thing. It makes a strong affiliation. And I think we've seen that the last handful of years, from Grandview winning in 2013, and then you hit, Marion win in 2014. We were fortunate enough to win in 16 and 17. Morningside then going back to back. Then you have Lindsey Wilson pulling one out. I mean, so you see those different teams, that are competing there. So that parity is important. Northwestern last year. So it's good to see. It's good to see some different teams. It's not just as classic as they were, and you were a part of all of those, the Carroll Sioux Falls National Championship, the market on the date, this is what's going to happen and where it's going to happen. Every year was market. Yeah.
There is definitely a couple of years where you're looking at that with Kalen DeBoer at Sioux Falls and, Coach Van Diest at Carroll College just kind of said, well, it's going to be when those two get matched up against one another. How about Kalen DeBoer? Big W yesterday. We were talking about this in the pregame show. If you are a fan of Division I college football, which everybody is here, I am. Nobody can be like, oh, I only follow NAIA football, and I have no. Everybody's got a Division I team. If you are wavering at all for who should be in the college football playoff, you need to throw your hat into the ring and become a Washington Huskies fan just purely for the NAIA connection there. There are so many NAIA coaches on that staff. Kalen DeBoer was a great coach in the NAIA, and he was an ambassador for the NAIA when he was in it and since he's been out of it. So he is a guy that definitely has helped push the NAIA football world forward while he was here. And end of the day, he's a tremendous coach, and they are doing some amazing things with Washington, and couldn't be more proud to see what DeBoer and Grubb and Morrell and that entire staff has been able to do up there in Seattle.
No, it's so cool to see. I mean, we have the NAIA has produced great coaches, and that staff in particular, like you mentioned, there's no question about it. Out of curiosity, I know you're the encyclopedia of NAIA football. What was their last year at Sioux Falls? Would Kalen been like 2013, 12?
No, 09 or 10.
Okay.
It was 09 or 10. It was basically when they put in, it was the same year they put in that they were going to go Division II, because then Jed Stugart came for 1 year and was an NAIA coach for for sure 1 year, maybe 2
transitional
years
year.
as a transitional year before they went into the Northern Sun. And then Stugart continued into the Sun before he took the head coaching job at Lindenwood, who made the
Right.
jump to Division II and is now making the jump to Division I FCS. So
Right. Yeah. Last year we played Kalen in Sioux Falls. It was 08 in the semifinals. We
Yep.
made that trip out to Sioux Falls. So yeah, really, you think about it. I mean, he's made this rise in relatively, short time. He's done it. He started as he left Sioux Falls and went to Southern Illinois as the offensive coordinator. Kind of bounced around from there a couple places, ended up being Indiana's offensive coordinator, then head coach at Fresno, now at Washington. His significant paycheck, a little different than back at Sioux Falls, what he's getting now. And happy for those guys. Coach Grubb, we knew a little bit, when he was at Sioux Falls as well and had a tremendous year. I'm guessing those coaches are going to be the coaches of the year in the Pac-12. Obviously, Kalen will. I think Coach Grubb will be the assistant of the year. So just a tremendous year. Is Michael Penix going to be the Heisman Trophy winner? Probably. I mean, right now, I think he's the front runner. So it's great to see, traditional NAIA guy. I mean, if Kalen DeBoer was a great player at Sioux Falls, assistant coach, worked his way up to become the head coach at Sioux Falls. I think he's 31 years old. Does that sound right, Jason? I think he's a year or two older than us. But
he played in the '96 championship game. He was a senior. So
okay,
you do the math from that.
He's coming by a couple of years, but he's just it's so great to see. He's a great guy. We know him on a personal level and hung out with him, and just so happy to see him having success, and the whole staff, Coach Morrell. Those guys are, first class, and cool to see where they've come from as NAIA guys to play at the highest level in Division I football. So very cool.
Yeah, it's just awesome for those guys. Oh, as I'm going through my brain here and I'm thinking about things, I want to say 09 was their last year, because in 2010, John Thayer and I were traveling the country broadcasting games, and I can't remember the game we were going to, but we ended up going through Carbondale, and Kalen DeBoer gave us a tour of the Southern Illinois facilities. So we got a chance to kind of run through there and check that out. I can't remember what game him and I were traveling to, but it's funny, just send Kalen a text and, yeah, man, stop on by. So just
it's the same way now, Jason. If we do it, obviously we're not playing for a Pac-12 championship, but in the off season we go up to Seattle anytime, I'm sure, and tour the place. Those guys are getting first class, and I'm sure be some cool things to see there in Seattle.
So back in 2020, I had told myself I was going to get back into just doing some interviews and interviewing some coaches, and shot him a text because we were going through the whole COVID thing and stuff like that. I was like, Coach, what do you think about, doing an interview with me? He's like, absolutely, Jason, when's it work for you? So, I mean, I wouldn't even want to try to approach the subject right now, because I think that'd be pretty selfish of me being like, oh, well, come Coach DeBoer will come on with me. It's like, no.
Cash of the national coach of the year in Division I football.
Yeah. Well, hey, call you so we can talk about what you did back in the NAIA. It's like, I got some things going on right now, Jason. Sure. I'll call you back.
The thing is, and we know him well. I mean, he would love that, to tell that stories. I know he would tell him at the time, because he's a South Dakota guy, right? He's from the area there.
Absolutely.
I think, he's a South Dakota guy.
South Dakota.
True NAIA guy, played at a high level and worked his way up in the coaching ranks. And yeah, just a great story. Great coaching story. The evolution of his career and where it started and where it is now. That's happens to good people. He's a good guy. So couldn't be happier for him.
And the other thing that I think you could really get Kalen to talk for days about is Bob Young. And Bob Young was a historic NAIA coach. And you want to talk about like an old school coach that went through it. Like when he went to Sioux Falls, and I'm not going to name any names, but as you sit there as an NAIA fan listening to us talk, think about the worst program that is in your league or you played, or facilities were horrible. Just everything about it was not good. Think of that. That's who Bob Young started coaching in 1982. The University of Sioux Falls, or Sioux Falls College at that time, was not in a good position. And he went in with good coaching, local recruiting, bringing in the right kids, developing a program, and did all those things, to make that Sioux Falls program into such a winner from, the 90s into the 2000s before they left to go into Division II. So, and Kalen would talk for days about Bob Young, who passed away this last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just
tremendous stuff.
Sure. We can definitely talk about Freddie Tease too.
Freddie Tease. Gotta love it.
Was that in Tennessee, or was it on the Mississippi side?
It was on the Mississippi side, because there's no alcohol in Hardin County, Tennessee. Right. It was a dry county.
Sorry, the folks out there, the old school NAI folks remember the old Savannah, Tennessee National Championship site. So there was a party, a place called Freddie T's on the Mississippi side that was kind of legendary. So
Yeah, it was a really nice bar.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, all the fan bases were there, the families. It was cool.
The weirdest part was they had the dance floor on the ground at Freddie T's, but then there's also a dance floor up above, and it had a glass floor, so you could like look up and you could see the people dancing. And if I was a female, why would you go to the second floor? Like just a terrible design. Just what are you thinking, people? But
I remember spending significant time with Coach DeBoer there, just talking life and football, and just kind of the whole thing. And it was so cool because he was so interested in my dad and kind of our dynamic working together as father and son. Just a really interesting guy, and really cares about people, and was asking questions, and really interested in what my dad and I, our dynamic was, and how we got into this whole thing. So yeah, it was just really cool. I remember a lot of conversations with him. In 2008 Freddie T's night.
So the long and short of this whole conversation is, as an NAI fan, you need to be rooting for the University of Washington to do well. I know you're probably an Alabama fan or a Georgia fan, or you like Michigan or Ohio State, and
there's a big game this weekend. Have you heard?
Is there?
Yeah.
Is there? Is it Nebraska, Iowa?
Yeah, that one.
That's a big one. They play for the Heroes Trophy.
Yeah.
Which it will take a hero to score a touchdown in that game this week.
It's gonna be a tight one. Field goals, baby.
Field goals, baby. Final score 9-6 Hawkeyes.
Yeah. I will actually be in the Detroit metro area this weekend. It's gonna be a little crazy. So
that's what you're saying. You got a little hockey happening again up there, Dad?
Whole lot of hockey. Yeah, it's crazy. 10-year-olds.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
What is the skating level? By the way, again, for anybody that hasn't figured it out, we are way past the NAIA conversation. We got that out of the way. We look forward to the games next week. What is the skating level of 10-year-olds in hockey? I mean, is it at that level? Is it like, whoa, that's pretty impressive, or is it still a little,
for the people that don't ever see it, it'd blow your mind, actually. I mean, so it's pretty high.
Do it.
I don't skate well, believe me. I skate about as well as or fast as I can walk. So, no, it's impressive to see little guys turn and stop and start. I mean, it's a whole thing. So, yeah, to play the sport, you got to be able to skate well. So, yeah, and they skate shockingly well for little guys. So, yeah, my son's been on skates since he was 3, so it's kind of his thing. So,
that's definitely good. I did not.
I'm not going to the game, unfortunately. I wish I was. I'm in the area, and I'm not going to be watching the Michigan Ohio State game, but I'm gonna be a few miles away. So
you'll have your phone. You'll be able to do that in between.
We'll be at an ice cold rink instead.
Yeah. The only time I've ever officially been on ice skates, like I've walked on ice and ran on ice and done all that, but I never officially put on ice skates until it was probably 2008, 2009. We were doing a playoff feature. Lindenwood was hosting Ottawa. So we had the whole college fans group there, and Lindenwood had a hockey team. So it's like, and I think they had just won a national championship. So like, we'll do a halftime feature on them. So we went to the hockey rink, 2 people were doing the interview, and they're like, well, do you guys want to skate? And we're like, sure. Okay. Never done it. What's your shoe size? Put the whole thing on. I get out there and I start like going, and I'm like, this isn't good. So I'm just trying to get my feet under me, and I'm getting away from like the edge, and I'm like, hey, I think I got it. And I go to stand up, and I can feel myself ready to wipe out. So I put my arm out to like grab for the edge, and I miss, and just all of my weight onto the ice right there. I separated my shoulder. I couldn't lift it above my head for like a month. It was
that's
not
a story.
Good. Yeah.
Oh man.
So that was the last time I was on ice skates, and the first time I was on ice skates.
Probably, yeah. Just watch from afar. Yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah. I am definitely
not easy.
I am now built for non-contact sports.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
I see pickleball in my future.
That's fun. I see the seniors in my YMCA, my local YMCA, get after it. And it's heated. Those ladies get after it now. They get after it. We have a walking track above, so just to like look down and see the competitive pickleball games. It's high level stuff.
Probably do. I played pickleball in high school and got taught as like a PE chapter or whatever. I'm like, this is fine. Haven't played it since. Same thing with racquetball. Took a racquetball in college for like 9 weeks. I was like, this is fun. Bought a racket, never used it. Pretty sure it's on a shelf right over there in my garage.
Are you a golfer? I can't remember.
Yeah, horrible. I actually
Yeah.
played. We did the whole Top Golf thing yesterday. The wife's family was in town for.
Oh, you have one in Fargo. Cool.
Yeah, so we got one in
Really?
Fargo. So
Wow.
the whole Top
Awesome.
Golf thing. I am not a good golfer, but I have clubs and I swing them occasionally. I like also watching our viewer count in the corner.
It's just falling.
Just
going
creep
down.
down.
We didn't get any questions today. No questions.
Oh wait, no, we just got some comments. Valor all the
Okay.
way. Great to have Coach Oliver on. Coach at Mount Vernon High School, where his quarterback Sloonacre is from. Great player.
Oh, Grant. Yeah, Garrick. What a cool name, Garrick Sloonacre. What a cool.
Yes.
I recruited Garrick. Good kid. He's a good player too. I'm happy to see him have success at Georgetown.
Yeah, it's
Garrick Sloonacre. What a cool name, Garrick.
That is.
Yeah,
it's
cool
like
name.
it's definitely a football guy name.
Oh yeah,
so
and he is. He's
like
a great
that.
kid too. Smart guy.
But no questions there. Maybe got something on Twitter, but I didn't really check my phone for obvious reasons. So there you have it.
Yeah.
We probably should wrap it up, Pat. We've been doing this long enough, and we probably have wives and family that want to see us before they go to bed.
Yeah. We is there any way we can get a guest next week to come close to Coach Oliver's status? I don't know.
I'm gonna, if you've got an angle to work there, let me know.
Yeah.
If you think you got one for a special guest, let me know. Just you don't have to tell me who. You can give them the link I send you, and we can make it a surprise.
Is that how it works? Okay.
Yep. Just the link I email you to join, you just send it to them, and they can join us as well. So, and if I come up with one first, I'll let you know. We can have 2. We can have 3. People probably at this point, people would much rather hear from our guests than me for sure, and probably yourself at some point.
I wonder, how it's going to be received. Obviously, Coach Oliver's interview was great, but the hard hitting questions are going to be saved for a little bit later. But I think that obviously great first interview we've ever had on the show. So
yeah. Great. Thanks for Chris for coming on. Pat, as always, I know you had a busy weekend. I appreciate you coming on, making this show fun. It's a heck of a lot of fun. For everybody that's been watching the show, thank you so much for checking out NAIA football with Dannelly and Donley. We'll be back next week at the same time. We'll break down the next round of the NAIA postseason, as well as take a look back at the games that are happening this upcoming weekend. For Pat Donley, I'm Jason Dannelly. This has been NAIA football with Dannelly and Donley from the Victory Sports Network.